Mark Twain said in his autobiography, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It's coming again next year, 1910, and I expect to go out with it. The Almighty has said, no doubt, now here are these two unaccountable freaks. They came in together, they must go out together." And then Twain died April 21st, 1910, the day following the comet's subsequent perihelion. Luckily, Nietzsche got to experience the Venus transits of 1874 and 1882, so those were big times for a transition in the Mayan calendar. And we've already experienced the 2004 Venus transit. And the next one is June 6, 2012. So Nietzsche, I think, was at a perfect time to point out the blunders of culture in the late 19th century. And now it's our time to make up for it in this third millennium. Funny thing also about Nietzsche's birth, he was born 1844, the year Neptune was discovered, and that's the planet of spirituality and religion. Also, from the years 1874 through 1894 was the era of Ish, the jaguar, which is my Mayan archetype, which is also the magician and the sorcerer. So he got to channel all the psychic knowledge during the era of jaguar. And he's also, Nietzsche's ascendant is on the Scorpius cusp. Now, right in between Scorpio and Sagittarius is the center of the Milky Way galaxy. They believe the archer's tip of the arrow is the exact center of the Milky Way galaxy. And so Nietzsche's ascendant, he was facing the Milky Way center technically during his birth. With that taken into account, in my other previous videos, which kind of hint at the idea that he's a reincarnated Mayan prophet, there's a Nietzsche biography. In it, they have Nietzsche in the insane asylum dancing naked in a very tribal-like fashion. I mean, they actually had the actor do this. Now, I don't want to say it's just because he was crazy or he became innocent again, but my belief is that Nietzsche went back to his primal Mayan previous past lives, and he was just reliving it in this life, and that dance was actually perhaps a Mayan dance from ages ago. 1844 is also the year of the dragon. Quetzalcoatl's the lizard serpent, the serpent bird. And Scorpio is his ascendant, so Scorpio is also seen as the sign of the eagle. So he's a serpent bird, literally. And since he was born with Uranus in Aries and also Pluto in Aries, his will to power is very obvious. I mean, Aries is the very first sign, so they're all about initiation and ambition. They have a lot of heart and ego. So his will to power was just a manifestation of that Uranus and Pluto energy in Aries. And when he was around 40, Uranus was in Libra when he wrote his greatest works, and that's his sign, Libra, the sign of the justice. So he was having not only a Uranus opposite Uranus transit, but he was having a Uranus conjunct Sun transit as well. The fact that the alignment is perfect for that stage of evolution, as well as the zodiacal placement it's in, makes me very curious. Not to mention that Quetzalcoatl was seen to be as the planet Venus, like I said, and Venus is actually ruled by the sign of Libra. So all of Nietzsche's archetypes are pointing towards a Mayan destiny, a fate. Funny thing about Nietzsche also is that a guy named Adolf was Nietzsche's favorite student. And when he was a little kid, Adolf was the first name he heard. And I just find it very funny. Senor Adolf Hitler had some kind of affinity with him. He really saw something in Nietzsche, and I think it's because Hitler had his Neptune in Libra, and since he was an Aries, he enjoyed Nietzsche's Aries archetypes as well. But he didn't have any Aquarius, he didn't have any more, let's say, down-to-earth humanitarian signs. All this shit in Taurus makes him very stubborn. Now, I want to randomly just say this. I was watching Why Do Fools Fall in Love, and they mention Nietzsche in it. Like, the dude's, getting hopped up on drugs, throwing his life away, and they mention a Nietzsche line that says that you gotta be your own source of inspiration in this life. And the writer, which is very strange, has Jupiter in Pisces just like Nietzsche and I, and Moon in Sagittarius like Nietzsche. And since she had her Neptune in Libra, I could also see her relating to Nietzsche's Neptune in Aquarius, because they're both air signs. In Mayan astrology, Nietzsche is the sign of ebb, which is either the road or man. And, I mean, his last work, not including my sister and I, is called Icha Homo, Behold the Man. So he really, literally personifies this perfection of what humankind is supposed to be, I believe. Nietzsche once said that history, perfect and complete, that would be cosmic self-consciousness. Now, if 2012 is really the fractal time coming to an end, this is exactly what we're going to be trying to feel and trying to overcome. If all of history is wrapped up every second post-2012, then we will have cosmic consciousness, as Nietzsche fantasized about. I mean, Leo Tolstoy once said that Nietzsche was stupid and abnormal. I mean, as opposed to the man who wrote the longest, most arduous book of them all, War and Peace. I personally think that a book that can literally stand on its own either had too much or too little thought put into it. You really just got to look at the index of the most informative authors there are and see what they really just talk about the whole time. If you look at the index of a Nietzsche book, you will see so many topics, so many names. It's not just morality, you know. I mean, Tolstoy also found Shakespeare's Hamlet unintelligible, whatever that means. Interesting fact about Nietzsche's parents and mine. His mom is a dog like my stepmom, and his father was born the year of the rooster like my stepfather. And my mom is a Libra like him, and his mom is an Aquarius like me. It's like certain archetypes were supposed to raise the next kind of archetype. I find it interesting that Nietzsche wrote 4 books in 1888, the year of the rat. It's not only the most talkative animal, and he was having good transits, but the year of the rat gets along perfectly with the year of the dragon, so his whole manifestation was in unison with itself. And then he falls in 1889, and then he writes My Sister and I, which isn't as good, but that doesn't mean it wasn't him, just because it's not as good. There weren't as many positive planetary alignments during that time as well. His greatest works were bam during exact moments of archetypal parallelism. Now, if we talk about Wagner, he and his wife Cosima were both earth sign cuspers, and they were both the year of the rooster. I find that interesting. And roosters are sort of have a special connection with dragons, like rabbits have with dogs. Richard Wagner has his Saturn in Capricorn, just like Nietzsche, so they're extremely disciplined. They saw that in each other. And Cosima, who Nietzsche almost fell in love with, they both have moon in Sagittarius. So Cosima and Nietzsche were very subconsciously philosophical. Now, if you want to get real into archetypes, which, you know, there's nothing else to do. Lou Salome, Nietzsche's crush. She and I, well, she's Aquarius like me, and she's the year of the rooster. Once again, a great connection. But Lou Salome and I share Mars in Aries, makes us very independent, and Mercury in Pisces, so the way we communicate is a little more intangible and not logical, which Nietzsche loved with his Jupiter in Pisces, I'm sure. And she has Venus in Capricorn like me as well. So Venus is the planet of relationships, and Capricorn is the sign of manifestation. We're very timid when it comes to love, which is a reason why she was very hesitant when he asked her to marry him. Thank God she said no, or else I probably wouldn't be talking about him right now. Now, with all this in mind, I want to give a Francis Bacon quote, which is always stuck with me. I'll never forget it. He said, "A little philosophy inclineth man's mind to atheism, whereas in-depth philosophy bringeth men's minds back to religion." Now, instead of religion, we can say spirituality, just the oneness in all things that can't be objectified with a bloody calculator. I think Nietzsche attained this. At first he was about philosophy, you know, what are the senses, but then he realized that's just kind of chasing your tail. Just, we have the senses for a reason. Yes, they're falsified, but just because they aren't always right doesn't mean they are never right. And that's why we discredit Kant a lot. Nietzsche says that Kant hasn't experienced very much, and you probably shouldn't trust someone who hasn't even been 20 miles from his own home. He never traveled the world, he never did anything except read. And, I mean, people think Nietzsche's a hermit. He traveled all across Europe and knew 6 languages. Kant was a fucking hermit, and he's still, like, seen as more influential, not necessarily profound than Nietzsche. He asked some nice questions, but Nietzsche, in the end, he knew that we're not just walking, talking encyclopedias, as Emerson put it. We are emotional creatures in an emotional world, and we're here to help people. And any philosopher who discredits intuition isn't using the divine nectar. Emerson says that great truths aren't arrived at with intellect alone, but inebriated with the divine nectar. And this, to me, is intuition.